Today's recap is Gremlins. In Chinatown, we meet Rand, a middle-aged inventor being led into a shabby junk shop by the teenage grandson of the store's owner. Once inside, Rand meets the owner, Mr. Wing, and attempts to pitch one of his latest inventions. However, partway through his sales pitch, Rand becomes distracted by some strange sounds emanating from deeper in the store. Intrigued, he goes to investigate and discovers a peculiar little creature. The grandson explains that it's called a Mogwai. Fascinated by the singing creature, Rand offers to buy it, thinking it would make an excellent Christmas gift for his son. Mr. Wing, however, refuses to sell the Mogwai, explaining that it carries too much responsibility for anyone to handle. Disheartened, the grandson, eager to help his struggling family, secretly meets Rand outside and sells the creature to him. He gives Rand 3 crucial rules. 1. Keep the Mogwai out of bright light, especially sunlight. 2. Keep it away from water, no getting it wet. And 3. The most critical rule, never, under any circumstance, feed it after midnight. Next, we are introduced to Billy and his dog, Barney. Struggling to get his car started, Billy eventually gives up and strikes up a conversation with his neighbor and family friend, Mr. Futterman. Afterward, Billy decides to walk to his job at the bank with Barney loyally following by his side. While Billy is at work, we meet Kate, his romantic interest. She tells him he just barely made it in on time. Then in storms Mrs. Deagle, who is a real see you next Tuesday. To give you a sense of her personality, when someone wishes her a good morning, her response is a cold, "What's good about it?" She even goes as far as calling some kids deadbeats, which is facts, but you don't say it to their face. Safe to say all my homies hate Mrs. Deagle. Unfortunately, Billy has the misfortune of dealing with Mrs. Deagle, who accuses his dog of destroying her ridiculous snowman lawn ornament. Billy offers to compensate her, but that's not what she wants. Instead, she demands that the dog be put down, which is wild and comically evil. She goes so far as to threaten that if she catches the dog, she'll make its end slow, maybe by throwing it into her spin dryer on high heat. This woman is completely unhinged. Meanwhile, this guy here is like, yeah, that'll do it. Sensing the tension, Billy's dog escapes from under the desk, startling Mrs. Deagle. The bank manager then scolds Billy for bringing the dog to work. After his shift, Billy heads to a bar where Gerald, one of his co-workers, takes the opportunity to belittle him, even mentioning that Billy was nearly fired over the morning's events. Gerald continues to boast while questioning Billy's choices in life. During this time, we learn that Kate has recently started working part-time at the bar. When Billy gets home, we meet his mother, Lynn. After a brief chat, they hear Rand returning from his trip. The two go to greet him, and Rand surprises Billy with a gift. The small creature reveals itself, and Rand mentions that he's been calling it Gizmo. Lynn takes a photo, but the camera's flash startles Gizmo. Rand then goes over the 3 critical rules for caring for the creature, emphasizing just how important they are. The following day, Billy's young friend Pete visits, and Billy introduces him to Gizmo. During their interaction, Pete accidentally spills a glass of water, causing Gizmo to react wildly. As Gizmo goes into a frenzy, several small furballs emerge from his back, rapidly growing into full-size creatures that resemble him. However, these new creatures have a different demeanor compared to Gizmo. One of them, sporting a mohawk, even tries to nibble on Pete's finger. Billy decides to inform his father about these new creatures. Ignore the white stuff. His father, seeing potential profit, immediately considers how he might monetize them. Billy notes that these new Mogwai seem distinct from Gizmo, particularly the one with a white mohawk, referred to as Stripe. He appears to be the leader and exhibits a hostile attitude towards Gizmo, even spitting at him as he plays his little trumpet. Later that evening, Billy is jolted awake by Barney's howling. He discovers that Barney has been strung up with Christmas lights outside. Billy suspects Mrs. Deagle might be involved. Lynn advises against making accusations without proof, noting that there are no footprints leading up to the house. Rand assures Billy that he will take Barney to his grandmother's house before heading to an upcoming inventors convention and promises to return in time for Christmas. Billy decides to bring one of the Mogwai to the local school for a scientific examination. He meets with Roy Hansen, the biology teacher, and demonstrates how even a tiny amount of water can cause the creature to generate a new one. Amazed, Roy requests to keep the Mogwai for further study, and Billy consents before departing. Later that day, Billy visits the bar and observes Kate convincing a very intoxicated Mr. Futterman to walk home rather than drive. Billy then offers to walk Kate to her house, during which she reveals her dislike for Christmas, but becomes defensive when questioned about it. As they reach Kate's home, Billy asks her out on a date and she agrees. Meanwhile, at the school, Roy is conducting blood tests on the Mogwai that Billy left with him. That night, Billy is sketching while the Mogwai make a fuss. Checking the clock and seeing it's not yet midnight, he heads to the kitchen to get them some food. When he returns, the Mogwai eagerly devour the meal, except for Gizmo. Meanwhile, Roy, realizing it's already well past 2 a.m., decides to call it a night. Morning. He leaves behind a half-eaten sandwich, which the Mogwai is able to reach from its cage. The next morning, Billy calls for his mother to come upstairs. To his dismay, all the Mogwai have vanished, leaving behind only Gizmo and some strange, slimy eggs. When his mother questions whether he fed them after midnight, Billy checks the clock and finds that the time is unchanged from earlier that morning. He then notices that the wires have been chewed through. Billy and Pete head to the school to meet Roy, where they discover that the Mogwai there is undergoing a similar transformation. Roy describes it as entering the pupal stage. In the afternoon, Rand calls home from the convention. Meanwhile, the eggs begin to hatch, and Gizmo, frightened, hides inside a football helmet. Roy contacts Billy at the bank to inform him that they've hatched, prompting Billy to rush to the school. Upon arrival, Billy finds Roy dead, with a syringe in his butt. As Billy reaches for the phone, a clawed hand swipes at him, and the creature escapes through a vent. After tending to his injury, Billy is startled when the creature emerges from a cupboard, attempting to claw at him and then flees. Back at the Peltzer home, the newly hatched creatures have dragged Gizmo from his hiding spot and are tormenting the little guy. Lynn hears the commotion from downstairs and heads up with a knife to check it out. Gizmo is thrown into a laundry chute, accompanied by the iconic line, "Gizmo caca." Lynn discovers the slimy eggs have hatched. Just then, Billy calls from the school, but one of the creatures cuts the phone line. Lynn starts hearing music from downstairs and goes to investigate. She begins to downright battle the creatures, taking most of them out one by one. She deals with one creature by turning on a blender it was feeding from, causing green goo to spray everywhere. She just stabs this dude to death, before using bug spray to drive another into the microwave, which she then turns on, exploding him. Dual-wielding knives, she goes to confront the next creature, which gets the jump on her as it was hiding in the Christmas tree. Billy arrives. "Don't tell your father, I swear it's not what it looks like." He grabs a sword and swings it into the creature, who then flies into the fireplace. Meanwhile, Mohawk here simply blows his nose on the curtains and bails. I don't blame him. Lynn's scary. Billy grabs Gizmo, and together they track the creature to a nearby indoor pool. Just as they arrive, Billy sees the creature leap into the water, causing it to multiply rapidly. Realizing he's now severely outnumbered, Billy rushes to the police station, hoping they'll take action. Unfortunately, the officers don't take him seriously and assume he's had too much to drink, refusing to help. Fun fact, one of the officers is played by a young Jonathan Banks, who you might recognize as Mike from Breaking Bad. Anyway, back to the recap. Thousands of gremlins begin emerging. The mischievous creatures begin causing chaos throughout the town. They hijack Mr. Futterman's snowplow, crashing it into his house and running over him and his wife. From tampering with traffic lights to sabotaging mail deliveries, they leave a trail of destruction in their wake, making the town descend into madness. At the police station, reports start flooding in about strange incidents caused by the gremlins, prompting the officers to head out, leaving Billy behind. Meanwhile, Mrs. Deagle, ready to douse what she thinks are carolers with water, is horrified to find gremlins at her doorstep instead. Convinced they're demons coming to take her away, she retreats inside in terror. However, her stair lift, sabotaged by one of the creatures, malfunctions and launches her through her second-floor window. The cops, witnessing this, stop to investigate, finding what's left of Mrs. Deagle still on the chair. Unfortunately, a gremlin cuts their brakes, causing them to crash shortly afterward. Billy hops into his car, and luckily, it starts without issue. He heads to the bar to check on Kate, only to find her surrounded by gremlins who have taken over the place. They're partying hard, drinking beer, playing cards, and dancing wildly. Thinking quickly, Kate uses the flash from a camera to disorient the creatures and manages to make her way to the door. Just as a gremlin wearing sunglasses and brandishing a gun confronts her, Billy's headlights shine through the window, forcing the creature to back off. Kate seizes the opportunity and the two of them escape together, but not before Kate gets a cheeky punch in. This time the car refuses to start, so Billy and Kate are forced to make a run for it. They head to the bank, only to find that it has also fallen victim to the Gremlins' chaos. Kate remarks that she now has 2 reasons to dislike Christmas, and finally shares the first one with Billy. As a child, her father mysteriously vanished on Christmas Eve. He didn't return the next day, and after several days, they discovered him in their chimney. He had been dressed as Santa Claus, but tragically slipped and broken his neck while trying to surprise them. After sharing her strange and tragic story, Billy and Kate leave the bank and make their way to the local movie theater, and the Gremlins are inside, enthusiastically watching Snow White. Seizing the opportunity, Billy and Kate head to the cellar and turn on the gas. Meanwhile, Stripe sneaks out of the theater in search of candy. Just as they prepare to ignite the gas using burning newspapers, they are spotted by the Gremlins. Forced to flee, they escape through the back door, managing to barricade it and trap the creatures inside. From a safe distance, they watch as the theater explodes, wiping out the Gremlins. But wait, not all of the Gremlins are gone. Kate spots Stripe peeking out from the window of a nearby department store. Determined to finish things, Billy and Kate head inside. Before they split up, the two share a brief kiss. Billy, armed with a bat, goes to track down Stripe while Kate stays behind to keep an eye on Gizmo. Kate, in the back room, stumbles upon a set of circuit breakers and starts flipping switches in a desperate attempt to help. Meanwhile, she notices that Gizmo has vanished. The first hints of daylight start creeping in. Elsewhere, Stripe ambushes Billy, shooting him in the arm with a crossbow. Billy retaliates by hurling a boombox at him, but Stripe ups the ante by coming at him with a chainsaw. Billy manages to hold him off just long enough for Kate to activate the lights, forcing Stripe to retreat. That's when Stripe finds a water fountain and some guns. Rand finally returns to town with Barney, but the dog starts barking at the shattered window of the department store and leaps out of the car, rushing inside. Rand follows to bring him back, only to discover that Gizmo has found a little toy car and is driving it around. Barney and Gizmo share a brief reunion. Billy stumbles upon the garden section, where Stripe is perched by the fountain holding a gun. Stripe takes a shot at Billy but misses. Just in time, Gizmo races in with his toy car, launching off a shovel before crashing down, giving him the chance to open the window shades. Sunlight pours in, directly hitting Stripe. As Billy watches, Stripe begins to melt before ultimately falling into the fountain, ensuring his demise. Kate and Rand arrive to witness the aftermath. Stripe's disintegrating body emerges from the fountain but can't handle the sunlight, collapsing and melting away. The group then heads back home, relieved. In the evening, the family is visited by Mr. Wing, who is displeased with how the gremlin chaos unfolded due to their negligence. He retrieves Gizmo, but before leaving, he tells Billy that perhaps someday he might be prepared to take on the responsibility of caring for Gizmo. Gizmo says goodbye to Billy. And that's Gremlins. Thank you so much for watching. Consider leaving a like if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe and hit that bell as I post recaps on a regular basis. What was your favorite part of the movie? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. This video's word of the day is collywobbles, which means a feeling of fear, apprehension, or nervousness. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.